Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick White, and this is another weekly discussion for ISA 4220. Today I will be going over POP3S and SMTPS, technical discussion and hardening recommendations. This is for KSU Fall Semester 2018. So let's get into it. What is POP3 and POP3S? These are going to be mail protocols. More specifically, the post office protocol is a standard mail protocol used to receive, note I said receive, emails from a remote server to a local email client. The protocol that is going to be used to send the emails to the server is going to be the SMTPS, which I will discuss shortly. So POP3 operates at the application layer and communicates using TCP/IP protocol. The 3 stands for version 3, which is the most widely used versions configured with most software. It is a client-server model, so you're basically just communicating between a client and a server, and that's about it. POP3 is listening on port 110, and the secure version is port 995. POP3 uses an authentication method with username and password before the person is able to use the email systems or try to download emails. So POP3S is the secure version of POP3. It encrypts the connection between the client and the email server, encrypting all messages between the two. So POP3 just had plain text messages. You could see what all was written if you were able to intercept these messages or receive them. So the emails are stored on a single device for POP3, and this also applies to POP3S, obviously. Sent messages are also stored on a single device, and emails can only be accessed from a single device. Now, this gives us a security advantage. Hackers and people that want to breach the network are not able to do so with this protocol unless they have the authorized devices. You are able to keep messages on the server if you want. I believe they're deleted by default after you download them. And also, to get the secure version of POP3S, you have to do a couple things. First, you want to get a certificate, an SSL certificate, and this will allow you to use the SSL ports. So to actually enable SSL after you get the certificate, you have to go in some of the configuration files. Right here I have this configuration file at the bottom of the page, and you're going to want to set SSL to required. This basically means that secure socket layer or transport layer security is always required, even if non-plaintext authentication mechanisms are used. So any attempt to authenticate before the SSL or TLS is enabled will cause an authentication failure, and you won't be able to get your emails. So how can you use POP3S to harden your email server? So obviously you want to enable the SSL for POP3, making it POP3S. After you get the certificate and change some of the configuration files, you should make sure you are listening on port 995, which is the port for POP3S. Some other hardening recommendations: to eliminate spam and phishing attempts, you can use a local IP blacklist on your server. You want to flag emails that you know are sending out phishing attempts or spam and add them to the blacklist, and that should put an end to those emails. Obviously, it's probably a never-ending cycle, but this will greatly reduce the amount of phishing attempts and spam that you see within your server. You want to enable automatic deletion of processed emails. Like I said, I'm pretty certain that is by default for POP3. You want to use SSL certificates from reputable sources and or a verified certificate authority. Again, that's just to make sure that you are getting the POP3S and that it is reputable and authentic. So the next protocol is SMTPS, and like I said, this is the protocol that you're going to be using to actually send the email from a client to a server. It stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. And unlike POP3, which has the option to use SSL or TLS, SMTPS is going to be primarily transport layer security. So a normal SMTP protocol is communicating at the application level between the server and client, and once you get it secured with TLS, it's going to be encrypted on the transport layer, hence transport layer security. For SMTPS, you're going to want to make sure you're listening to port 465 for that. And yeah, that's the basics of it. So some hardening recommendations for SMTPS. Let's see here. Obviously, you want to enable the encryption method of TLS by listening on the port. And actually, the way that you do this, again, you have to get a certificate for your SMTP server. You want to confirm that the fully qualified domain name, or FQDN, that's configured under the SMTP virtual server properties matches the cert name. If they're not matching, then it's not going to actually apply. You want to configure the FQDN to the SMTP virtual server. And how you do that is locate SMTP virtual server properties. Click on the delivery tab and then click advanced, then type FQDN in the fully qualified domain name box. After this, you want to restart the SMTP service and confirm that the certificate is found by locating the SMTP virtual servers property, which you already did. Click on the Access tab, and then Secure Communications section should display that your TLS certificate is found. And after you find the certificate that you already have, you want to make sure the date is matching with the actual certificate, the expiration date, just to make sure you have the right certificate for the service. And after that, it should be SMTPS is enabled and listening on port 465. So, again, you just have to go through the process of getting a certificate and then configuring some files. Well, in this case, you're using IIS, or IIS SMT Virtual Server. So some other hardening recommendations are you want to activate reverse DNS lookup. This will harden your SMTP server from spam and other email attacks. Again, you just want to filter out the actual users and those who are compromised and their accounts are being used for spam or other email. You want to also configure your mail relay so that your SMTP server should be limited to authenticated user email accounts only. So, in conclusion, you're using both of these protocols in tandem. They're not competing for each other. They each do something different. Next week we'll be talking about IMAP, which is a protocol that competes with POP3. And we'll talk about the differences between those and which scenario each one should be used in. Obviously, they have some pretty significant differences, and you can't really say one's better than the other. I mean, it just depends on how you're using it. In conclusion, you want to make sure that you're listening to the correct ports and make sure that you have the secure versions both enabled by getting the certs and editing some configuration files. And you want to take steps to harden your mail servers from spam, phishing, or unauthorized access. And using these protocols, you will definitely be able to beef up the security between client and email server. These are two pretty widely used protocols, POP3S and SMTPS. They're pretty standard in most situations. POP3S and IMAP, it's actually split, probably 50-50. Just like I said, depends on how you use it. So that should end the discussion here. Yep. Patrick White, ISA 4220. Thanks for listening. Bye.